What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the NarikChase channel. I'm your boy NarikChase, and in this video we're going to be continuing our series on the head-to-head, where we're going to be comparing the Alien series with the Predator. Now this video we're going to be concentrating specifically on the fourth installments in both of the series, the 1997 Alien Resurrection against the 2018 The Predator. That I've really enjoyed both series. Yes, both series have somewhat gone down the drain over the years, as a lot of these series tend to do over time. Now, the 1997 Alien Resurrection is the fourth installment in the Alien franchise, taking place 200 years after the events of Alien 3, in which Ripley has been successfully cloned, and not only her being cloned, but the alien that was inside her when she died in the third film. Now, the story doesn't just follow her, it follows this crew of mercenaries that end up getting on this military science research facility, and of course all goes to hell, aliens get loose, and we have the point of our movie right here. In terms of the story, the overall story, I don't really mind. I think it's actually a pretty interesting story. The problem is, I feel that the story at times doesn't feel like it could be as extreme as it could have been. It isn't really a lot of character development, but not enough, I think, especially when it comes to the various characters that we do have. And although they do turn out to be really unlikable, which I will get into later detail in the character section. But I think the story is interesting, not only because of what their profession is and how it relates to what's going on this. I think also the story surrounding Ripley is pretty interesting too. One of the biggest things that I like about it, which unfortunately I think the movie didn't show as well, but I think because I ended up reading the book, I think the book did a better job of it, is that she's a clone, but she has alien DNA, so she acts like a xenomorph does at certain instances, and the movie is kind of her humanity versus the xenomorph influence that's in her bloodstream. So I wish the movie would have done a better job of actually emphasizing that. There was even a point in the book where I ended up hearing that, reading that she had the dorsal fins like the xenomorphs do, and I would have kind of liked to have seen that. It would have actually further emphasized that subplot. So the whole subplot would be her trying to find her humanity, especially with the condition that she's under, how close she's are to the xenomorph and the influence on her. You know, people treating her not like she's human. So all of that further emphasized the xenomorph psychology behind her actions at certain times. So I think that's actually a pretty interesting story, and her being brought back as a clone I think is pretty interesting too. I don't think it's really shooting in. So the Ripley that we got in the first three films, this is not that same Ripley. It's just the biggest problem I feel that's going on with this is that this is a military installation. They got military personnel on there, so I'm really wanting to see more action. I want to see fighting. I want to see military versus, you know, these aliens. You want to see these mercenaries take on these aliens. They're not regular humans, so a bit of the action that you did see in Aliens. So you have these basically criminals, and they can be violent, so you want to see that go against xenomorphs, and the movie really does not deliver. Yeah, really cool underwater sequence where they kind of do have this kind of interesting fight, this really cool fight, but unfortunately the movie just doesn't deliver on it. And one of the things I think the story could have benefited on as well is if these characters storyline could have been taken a little bit from Ripley's as well, where she's trying to find her humanity amongst the xenomorph influence that's in her body. Why can't these characters find it as well? Because again, you don't really like the characters because of what they've done. They are not good guys. It's interesting, but it's not deep or as good as it could have been. Now let's go on to the 2018 The Predator film, in which, well, basically scientists end up capturing this predator. The predator ends up escaping because the predator's looking for technology that the mercenary who messed him up and got him caught end up shipping to his son. So the predator's looking for this technology because there's another bigger predator that's hunting them. Even though that this movie does pick up on the action a lot more, I have to say the story is just stupid. It doesn't really make any sense. Really isn't much character development. Like I'm kind of stuck on how to process this. If this movie would have been just okay, they caught this predator. This predator escaped, and then the rest of it just this manhunt for this predator. I think it would have been a much better movie. But the problem is, even though this predator did escape, it escaping really doesn't feel important. This bigger predator that comes along comes after this predator, which I think there is a lot of room for just an interesting story for that for itself, because it will show a bit of infighting that we amongst the predator species, which we did see a bit of that in Predators. When it comes to the story, it just is not really interesting. It feels like it's trying to cram all three of the previous movies into one, and then it just doesn't work. Because even when I reviewed it, I gave it like a 3 out of 5. But the movie does have a lot of great action. It does have some great comedic moments. It does have interesting characters. Not the best movie, not the worst movie. I have to say The Predator definitely deserves 3 out of 5. Mainly because I found it still entertaining. Yes, the story is stupid. There wasn't really anything deep to it. I did find that between the two movies, that in terms of story, I thought the story for Alien Resurrection was a bit more cohesive. Yes, it was a bit more drawn out. Yes, there wasn't a lot of action, but I still felt there was a story there. Both of these movies are a bit of a mixed bag, because both of the character sets for both the films are mercenaries, and not particularly good mercenaries. Now, one thing I can say about Alien Resurrection is, of course, as I've said before, this isn't the same Ripley, so she's not going to act the same. She's not going to make the same decisions. She doesn't see the world the same. This is a different iteration of the character, because she is a clone of that character. So she does look like her. She does have some of her actions and characteristics, but it's not her. I actually like this character, and I like the story surrounding the character. She's a clone, and then as the movie's going on, she's trying to find her humanity, and I like that. I really did like that. The character of Call, of all the characters, I found that she was pretty much the most likable of the mercenaries, and I liked the dynamic between her and Ripley. So I love those two characters. Johnner is an asshole. I would not have liked this character probably if it wasn't played by Ron Perlman. But Ron Perlman does a great job of just making this character asshole, and he's just so charming, and it makes him such an interesting character. He's very entertaining to watch. He steals almost every one of these scenes. He's just like the character you shouldn't like, but you like him anyway. Even he somewhat developed something of a character arc, so I really like that about this character as well. Really, most of the other characters I feel aren't really particularly that interesting. Yes, you got the guy that's in the wheelchair. He was pretty much a douche too, and he's got this slight crush on Carl, and him and Johnner always go back and forth. My other favorite character, Christy, really cool character. He was a really good guy. He was good with guns and everything, and he does probably some of the most interesting and cool stuff in the movie. I really wish his part would have been a bit played a bit more as well, because like I say, I thought it was a really interesting character. There was a soldier named DeStefano. I thought he wasn't giving much to do, but I kind of liked how he's a soldier who has to deal with these mercenaries, and how he's kind of grown to respect them throughout the course of the movie. Scientist, and of course he plays Brad Dourif. He's weird and everything. And I would have liked to see a little bit more of his character, and I really wish they could have done a bit more of kind of having him have this relationship between him and Ripley, because he's partially responsible for her being cloned. So it's been kind of interesting to see that dynamic between these two characters. How does he view her? Does he view her as a human? Does he view her as a xenomorph? Does he view her as just an experiment? I would have liked to have seen that more. There's also the other doctor guy who turns out to be the main antagonist, I guess you could say. He's a complete douchebag. Really doesn't do anything to help further the story. If you could put a face on the dicks that actually are the main human antagonists of the Alien universe, he is definitely one of them. Really didn't like his character. But having said that, I'd say probably about half the characters aren't really interesting. At least half the characters in this movie I actually like, and I think they're actually pretty memorable. The Predator focuses on a group of mercenaries as well. And these guys, I for the most part don't like most of them. Quinn, I think he's just a flat character. He's not interesting in the slightest. Even though the movie is about him and his family, really don't too much care about it. But maybe one of the reasons is you don't really see the relationship between him and his son, him and his. I'm not sure if that's his ex-wife or his wife. As a main protagonist, I really did not care for him that much. Now, one of the characters that stood out the most, who had personality, who had a good sense of humor, had a lot of heart, and who ends up making a really big sacrifice in the film, was Nebraska. I thought he was a really interesting character, and I really would have liked the movie to actually follow him. Now, Cassie Brackett, who is this female biologist that was brought into it to help study the predator or whatever, I liked her character. I thought she was okay. I would have liked her to have done more. I would have liked there to have been more exposition on her character as well, and a bit more of not really bonding, but more strengthening a relationship between her and these characters. Because I feel like the entire movie, she was pretty much the odd one out, which she pretty much was. A lot of people do not like Olivia Munn. A lot of people don't like the character. I actually think the character was actually warranted. She actually had something to bring to the table, especially when it comes to the science. I wish they could have written the character to be better and to have done a little bit more. Will Traeger, who's part of this government organization that's hunt down, get the technology of the predator and everything and find out about him. And I'm not against his character. He's definitely a hell of a lot better than that asshole from Alien Resurrection and Scientist guy. But he's still pretty much this caricature, like two different characters. At some moments he's really goofy and stuff, and then there's a moment he gets dead serious, and that goofiness just washes away. So I kind of like that. I do feel like he was a bit of a caricature. Now I wish he could have had a bit more depth to him, gave us a little bit more to do with his character as well. Who is his superiors? What got him onto this project? You know, what kind of actual skills does he actually have? But as far as villains go, I can actually say that he was a hell of a lot better than the doctor guy from Alien Resurrection. Really, the other characters, I didn't too much care for. In terms of the characters, I would definitely say that Alien Resurrection definitely takes the cake. Now, casting, I would say it's a bit more balanced. I like the performances on both sides. Of course, you got Sigourney Weaver returning to the role of Ripley. You got Winona Ryder. You got Ron Perlman, Brad Dourif. You got J.E. Freeman, Dan Hedaya, Michael Wilcott. Which Michael Wilcott, I like him as an actor. I am sorry, this guy was terribly used in this movie. He is the leader of this group. He should have survived to at least halfway through the movie, or when shit got real, sacrificed himself for his crew or something. Most of the cast do a pretty good job. I'm not knocking them on that. So the casting for this movie is actually pretty good. Now the cast for the Predator, about the same. Boyd Holbrook, I thought he was okay. He wasn't given much to do in terms of range, so you're not going to really see too much from him on that. Again, Trevante Rhodes was definitely the star of this movie. He was epic as Nebraska. He was the best thing, hands down, to come out this freaking movie. And I really wish that we could have had him being like a Predator sequel or something, or had him be the actual star of the movie, because he was actually really good. Jacob Tremblay, I've always enjoyed him as an actor. He's a young actor. I really appreciated him in Room, and I could have sworn I seen him in something else, but I don't remember. Keegan-Michael Key, again, he plays the exact same role in everything he's in. Just this goofy guy that cannot be serious no matter what's going on. Thomas Jane, always liked Thomas Jane. He wasn't really given much to do in the movie. Again, I like Olivia Munn. Sterling K. Brown, again, for a villain, he was entertaining. I really enjoyed him. Alright guys, so in terms of the casting and the performances, yes, you got really good cast, a really extraordinarily good cast for Alien Resurrection, but I'm not going to take that away from who do we have in this film as well. They did do good performances. I didn't really think anybody was bad, and there are some good actors, some genuinely good actors in this movie. So in terms of the acting, both of them are good. Let's talk about the visuals. Visuals can make or break a movie. Alien Resurrection, the location itself, when it comes to like the ship and everything, has this very rusty brownish look to it that gives it a really old rusty look to it, which I thought was okay. And it's definitely a different look compared to the previous films. Welcome, in fact, to me, it's actually a welcome change, and it also leads into the different looks of the xenomorphs themselves, where we don't have this really biomechanical looking metal-ish shell-like look to these creatures as in the previous film, but they actually have a more fleshy look to them, which I think actually works, and it does make them a lot nastier looking as well, especially when you get into them. You get the skin is out the little hole pockets and stuff in it, and that they breathing out this really cool mist or wherever the steam it, wherever the hell it is. And the practical effects for the creatures are actually really good. Now, there are some CGI. It looks really dated. Visually, I can say Alien Resurrection is a good looking film. I didn't really like the Alien Queen design. The one from Alien looks far better. The hybrid baby creature, whatever it is, I think it looks pretty cool. I think they could have did a better job. I get the idea, just I don't like the way it looks. But overall, I can say that the visual effects for Alien Resurrection and are pretty decent. They're pretty decent. Now, in terms of the Predator, I will give credit where credit is due. The Predator itself, the first one, actually looks really good. The practical effects of it looks pretty cool. The weapons that it does utilize is actually pretty good. And I like seeing the advancements of the technology. Now, I'm on the fence because they have the secondary Predator, and a lot of people did not like the CGI for it. They didn't like the fact that it was CGI. They didn't like almost anything about the creature. Me personally, I actually thought it was okay. I didn't mind it. I've seen CGI creatures like that look terrible, where the CGI looked just terrible. That did not look like it. I didn't really like the dogs. I thought the CGI for those dogs stood out a lot more. I really did like the action sequences, especially the part where the Predator wakes up in the science lab and he starts just wasting these guys left and right. Really enjoyed that sequence. It's probably one of my favorite sequences from the entire franchise. So visually, I would say both of them are actually about even. And that's somewhat saying something because one came out in 97 and the one came out in 2018. It's like the visually with the CGI, I think the CGI probably could have been a little bit better. In terms of the sound and score, both of these films, I think, do a pretty decent job. I'm not mad at them. Both of them suffer from poor writing, poor direction. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, whatever his French guy's name is, directed Alien Resurrection, did this movie a lot of disservice. There's a lot of that could have happened that wasn't in the movie, that could have happened but didn't happen in the movie, and it's just quite frankly a travesty. There are some conversations I think that are pretty meaningful for this movie, especially conversations between Ripley and Carl and how it feeds into the tone of humanity, which we do see in this movie. But a lot of the dialogue is pretty much forgettable. The writing when it comes to the pacing really sucks. There are sequences where you think something else would happen but doesn't happen. There are things that happen in the movie that shouldn't happen. Again, there are certain characters that get killed off at the beginning of the freaking outbreak when they shouldn't have got killed off. And one of the biggest sins that the movie has is to be set on a military installation, because if it's set into a military installation, you'd think you would see more scenes like, I don't know, aliens, the Marines sitting here fighting the freaking xenomorphs, but you don't really get that either. Freaking characterization was just terrible. All you know, these characters just, either they were just badasses or they were just douchebags, but they didn't really give us nothing to work with to bring the xenomorphs back. For what they did with the cloning, okay, fine, I can get behind that. But I think that them stretching to just get Ripley back into this, I wish they hadn't have done that. Maybe if it was descendant of Ripley's action, they could have put a lot. They had a lot of humor in this, but they should have put more action. There are scenes where you see these guys picking up guns and stuff. They never use these freaking guns. The only time they use the guns in this movie, in fact, the only time they use guns in this movie is the underwater part. This is the ship. I would have liked to seen more of the xenomorphs whooping ass and taking names. Them trying to escape. No, I would have liked to see how everything happens, battles, then them trying to escape. As soon as this infestation just jumps off, everybody's like leaving. I'm like, come on now. Y'all been studying these creatures. Y'all have to have some kind of means to stop them had they escaped. You're not just going to just leave this ship I don't even think the mercenaries really were even needed. They could have just been regular soldiers that worked there. Again, and going back to the Predator, has just as many faults. Shane Black, who actually was starred in the original Predator movie, directed and helped write this movie. Problem with its characterization, because again, most of the characters, they're just reduced to these just stupid roles that doesn't make any sense. They don't have anything deep going on about them. Again, Quinn is a character you kind of would have liked to root for, unfortunately, because his character is written to be this smart aleck douchebag. Writing puts way too much humor in it. I know Alien Resurrection had humorous bits, especially with the dialogue, but the writing in this just takes it over the top. Now, one thing I can say again over Resurrection is there's more action, and I really enjoyed that action that happened on there. But unfortunately, a lot of the action that's happening in this movie is hurt by some of the conveniences that go on in this movie. How the helmet got shipped there to the house. There was one part where this dog brings them a grenade, which helps kill the bigger predator. You never really get the sense that they're getting out of situations because of how badass they are. The dialogue is subpar. Again, too much comedy. The pacing, a bit fast paced, but again, with a story that's kind of like all over the place. And that freaking ending. Whoever wrote that ending, I don't know what is going on with you. The freaking Predators now have like this Tony Stark Iron Man technology going on here. So I guess it's supposed to be a sequel bait ending. They need to take that bait back because I didn't bite. It sucked. I'm sorry, it did. I'm all for open-ended stuff. I thought it was interesting, but it was still stupid and it sucked. A lot of these horror movies and action movies kind of rely a little bit more on comedy, and I think that was a big step back because it did not make the movie feel serious when it should have been serious. Even though there was a lot of missed opportunities in Alien Resurrection, I think the direction was a little bit more focused about where it wanted to go, and I feel like the writer was a little bit more solid. Not much more, but it was a little bit more solid. So I would definitely say that in terms of writing and direction, I'll give it to Alien Resurrection. Let's go down to the final verdict, guys. Between Alien Resurrection and The Predator, I would have to say that Alien Resurrection does win out. I think the characters are just a little bit better. I think the story is a little bit better. I also think that the writing, even though the writing was pretty bad on a lot of stuff, I think it was actually a little bit more solid and had a better focused direction than in The Predator. I still say The Predator is a more entertaining movie because of more of the action sequences, explosions, and stuff like that. But Alien Resurrection, I think, works much better in terms of actual story. All right then, guys, in the comment section below, let me know what did you think about my points here on the head-to-head. Did you like the Alien Resurrection? Do you like The Predator more? Be sure to leave me your comments in the comment section below. Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on this channel, and we'll definitely catch you guys later.